Hello everyone and welcome to today's Grosso University webinar, Why Digital Agencies Fail Their Clients. My name is Josh Yager and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Grosso University. I'm thrilled to be your host as we dive into an incredibly important topic that sheds light on the pitfalls of traditional digital agencies and how we're aiming to solve them with our latest endeavor, GU Digital. Today I have a distinct honor of introducing someone who embodies professionalism, creativity, and passion, traits that are often sorely lacking in the digital advertising world. Let me tell you a little bit about Sam Lowe, who is partnering with Grosso University to launch GU Digital, a new kind of digital advertising agency that prioritizes results-driven strategies and meaningful ad campaign creation. Sam and I first crossed paths during our time at Custom Offsets and Fitment Industries, brands in the automotive industry that specialized in all things lifted trucks and modified cars. From the moment we met, Sam left a lasting impression. His passion for automotive world was palpable. But what stood out just as much, if not more, was his ability in managing digital advertising teams and campaigns. Sam brought an unparalleled energy to his work, from ad creation to content strategy, and paired it with an extraordinary level of professionalism. It also didn't hurt that Sam spent most of his free time in a drift car, so he embodied that culture and embedded himself in that culture. Over the years, Sam's reputation has only grown stronger. He's led large, high-performing marketing teams at both Custom Offsets and Fitment Industries, but also Pierce Manufacturing, where they create the world's best fire engines and vehicles, right in my backyard in the Fox Valley. It became evident very quickly that Sam has a unique ability to bring consistency and passion to all things digital advertising. Qualities that translate directly into impactful ads and content that stand out in the crowded digital landscape. One of the things that sets Sam apart is his integrity in his work and knowing the audience. As a result of this, he crafts campaigns that resonate with the audience on a deeper level. While many agencies churn out cookie-cutter templates, Sam inspires his teams to develop content that is anything but run-of-the-mill. His professionalism and passion are contagious, and they fuel a standard of excellence that ensures every ad and piece of content is designed with purpose and creativity. When designing ad campaigns in the remodeling industry, attention to detail and impactful ads that resonate and set you apart in this industry. As the CMO for large home improvement companies, I was subjected to routine and relentless disappointment with digital agencies that overpromise and underdeliver. At GU Digital, we're taking a stand against the mediocrity that has come to define much of the digital advertising world. That is why we partner with Sam and his team to change the narrative in the remodeling industry. I have no doubt that will raise the bar for what clients should expect from their digital agency. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the man who will redefine digital advertising in the remodeling industry, Sam Lowe.
Glad to be here, Josh.
Thanks for joining us. Here at Grosso University, we pride ourselves on being leaders in the sales and marketing of home improvement companies. Now, what we're going to do with Grosso University is lead in marketing consulting and digital advertising with GU Digital. Now, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about GU Digital. We're going to talk about some of the pitfalls in the industry as it pertains to digital content and digital ad creation. We'll talk a little bit about how we can circumvent some of those problems and really build on companies and get them back into success with their digital advertising.
Yeah, honestly, it's a lot of content for just this one webinar, but I think this is going to be a really good one.
In further detail, we're going to talk about common reasons for digital agency failures in the home improvement industry. We're going to talk about insights to identify and avoid these pitfalls. And then we're going to talk about an introduction to Grosso University's solutions for sustainable success with GU Digital. So we have you here, Sam, to talk a little bit about the current landscape of digital agencies. Sam, share some insights on the landscape of digital marketing and agencies in general.
Yeah, so it's a varied landscape. So there's a lot of agencies out there from very small to very big. The tough part is finding what fits your needs and specifically what you're looking for, whether it's certain metrics, leads, revenue, ROI, whatever it is. There's everyone out there. So it's picking is hard. So kind of going through this, I think today will give you guys a better idea of why we could be the ideal solution for you, or at least arm you enough to be dangerous to get out there.
Perfect. And I actually am going to come from a point of experience.
Yeah.
I was a CMO for large organizations within the remodeling industry. And what I found was there's a varying level of experience when you deal with digital advertising agencies, but they all say that they're the best. They have the most profound experience in the industry, and you come to find out they're a single person working on your digital ads through Sprout Social, or it's very rudimentary what they're going to be able to bring to the table. And then you also see these very large organizations that are overextended, they have too many clients, and they don't really give you the personalized experience that you're looking for. Talk a little bit about that when it comes to, because I've dealt with it myself.
Same. I've been on both sides of the fence too.
Okay.
And it's interesting because you have the really small ones, which can be great for some people. Like don't get me wrong, some of those people are great out there, but it is kind of tough. You have a one-person team because you might not get in the expertise with a varied team with different experiences that you get with a little bit of a larger team. They go to the huge agencies, and you might be a small fish in a really big pond or an ocean. Mm-hmm. So you might not get the level of care that you're looking for. Really, the big thing is communication, Josh. I think you and I've worked together before, but that's the big thing. It comes down to communication and how often that communication is and how good it is. So for us, I'll just right off the bat, it's you're working with us every 2 weeks minimum. We're going to actually have a deck that we're going to go through, talk about metrics and goals that, if you're the client that you're like, this is what I want, we'll go through that. If we're not meeting it, what are we going to do to hit it? And we're going to give you the insights that you want and also that you need, because there's two differences here. You might need something and you might want something. And we're going to tell you, we don't know you want a bunch of clicks to your website, but you need leads. And that's what we're going to really distill down and want to talk about is those needs, because if we're not making you money, you're not going to want to work with us. And that's the whole thing is we're in the business of money. And it's easy to say the vanity metrics look great. That's cool, great, we're a great agency. No, it's are you making money or aren't you making money? And that's the conversation, that's a transparent conversation to have.
Sure. And what are some of the questions that you would feel would be pertinent for any owners out there? Say they don't do business with GU Digital. We're here to help people in marketing and really scale their businesses.
Yeah.
If you're vetting a digital agency, what are some things that they should be on the lookout for, some metrics that they should be looking into to have them validate performance for that particular organization?
It's a good question. It's honestly one that I don't think a lot of people ask. So if you're going out there and talking to an agency, the first thing is they should be doing an audit on you. It shouldn't just be hey, this is what we can deliver to you. But if they haven't looked under the hood and seen what your company is, who your customers are, what your company history is, and then also what your goals are, current and in the past, if they don't know any of that, and they just say we can do these things, it's not found in truth. Where we want to go through that and understand what your goals are, what are you trying to do, and what's the current state of affairs. Because with that communication, it's also honesty, where we're going to be brutally honest and say, hey, if you want to make $2 million a year in revenue off this one product line, we can do that, but this is what's going to take. And it's just honest. And it's I don't have that. Great, let's see what we can do instead, and make sure it's realistic. Because ultimately, if we're not both successful in this, it doesn't make sense. And we don't want to say something where it's, hey, we're going to do this, and it sounds really good, and then 2 months later, that didn't work. That's silly, because I don't want to have those conversations. I want to have those conversations of, this is working, how do we do better, and how do we add more to it? And that starts at the very beginning. And when you're asking agencies for that, listen to what they're asking you. Really pay attention to it, because it's really an interview for you. You're not interviewing them. They should be interviewing you.
No, that's a great point. It sounds like just honesty in both directions in terms of expectations. Now, like you said, I've been at organizations and I've advised organizations where it doesn't matter how many leads you get them, their internal processes are not really equipped to handle the leads that you're getting them. So at the end of the day, an agency is really tied to the internal processes of the company that they're doing business with. So, and that's one of the most important parts, and that's why it's so great at Grosso University that we can oversee the omni-channel marketing, we can oversee the entire organization as CMO, fractional CMO type packages that we do have, but also seeing your whole landscape, your call center, your ability to process leads, policies, procedures. Now, and then taking those digital leads that we're able to create and making sure that you're handling them correctly so you optimize that efficiency in terms of getting them on the schedule. And again, the best metric to look at is net sales, right? And selling the product after we've gotten in the home. So that being said, we're taking a look at the industry as a whole. Is very competitive, right? What I've noticed is the traffic for digital ad content, or the traffic on Google, the traffic on Meta, Facebook, and your ads, they'll take your money if you give it to them.
100%.
Right?
They love taking your money.
They love taking your money, but there's no guarantee of ROI, right? So when you take a look at that type of competition, how do you set yourself apart in that industry or that landscape when you have so many fish in the sea that are looking at the same pool of leads or traffic?
Well, and even jumping off that point is, say we're trying to get a lead for someone who's doing basement remodeling or something, for example. Well, that same customer is also trying to get sold a phone or phone plans or a car. It's all competing for it. So it's, how do you not compete with people that have way more budget? And that's what we were just talking about, is asking those initial questions and understanding who your customer is, what the business is. And you made a good point, Josh, what the internal processes look like. Because hey, I could tell you get 5,000 leads a month. Well, if you can only process 50, we're going to have a little bit of a problem. So in order to really clear the air, because there's a lot of competition, like you said, is you got to be very specific with it. There isn't a cookie cutter approach. Every business is different. Every customer is different. Whether it's your geographic region, the area that you serve, your product, or the type of customer you're going for, there's unique identifiers to there that we're going to use, and we want a custom tailored solution that reaches those people. Because I'd rather get 100 of the right eyeballs on something versus 1,000 eyeballs in general, and hoping 100 of the right ones are there. And you're paying for it, and it's really easy to throw money at Google, money at Meta, and they'll take it, but you might not get the return spit out. You might get some numbers, and you look at your bottom line, like, we didn't get any more leads. That's what we're trying to avoid here.
Right. And if you're taking a look at the landscape post-COVID, let's take a look at that. So digital advertising in the remodeling industry was kind of a niche for bigger, larger organizations that could afford a higher budget in terms of their marketing. When we were forced home, when we were forced to, do all our shopping online, and doing all of our vetting of contractors online, and getting quotes online, and doing digital sales appointments, it was kind of the wild, wild west.
Oh, it's crazy.
So survival of the fittest meant that every organization out there had to look at their website and adopt SEO and adopt all these principles of digital advertising and website development that really put them in the pool of companies that could survive through that, kind of tumultuous time. So we are looking at more companies that are apt at delivering that traffic to themselves, but they're also, we had the mom and pops out there working on referral business, word of mouth, but now they have a strong website. Now they have a digital advertising presence. They have their Facebook profile. And that's when these agencies started to blow up overnight. And they were able to garner clients. And that's when they overextended themselves. And what I found as a CMO for these companies was we were now competing against literally 20 other companies. And the cookie cutter agencies that were out there, they were creating ads that looked exactly like mom and pop. My company looked exactly like mom and pop, and the consumer subliminally was able to pick up on that.
Yeah, it's easy to take a cookie cutter approach to things. There's agencies that do it, agencies that don't. We're not one that wants to do that. We want everything to be unique because every brand has a story to tell, and you have your unique content, jobs you've done before, afters, all that stuff that are different from anyone else. It's not just putting a format on it, a template and going with it. It's actually making things unique, whether it's the messaging in there, the calls to action, and then, the website. It's easy to have a website now. I think everybody listening probably has a website. But that's another thing, too, I wanted to touch on is we go deeper than just we're running ads. We look at the website, because if your website isn't working properly, you're not going to be successful getting leads. And it's easy to just build it and think they will come. And I think you and I have both heard stories, Josh, of agencies coming in and saying, hey, we're going to give you 50,000 site sessions. That sounds great because you have like your close, right? You have an idea of what it's going to be. But 2 months down the road, you had nothing incremental happen, which means it didn't work. And it's you're asking yourself, did I have real people go to my website? Did they send bots? Like, did they pay a bunch of people? What does it look like? And no one has any ill intentions, but those results that matter. And, some people listening might have some bad taste in their mouth of like, I worked with an agency and it didn't work because, they promised something and it didn't happen. We've heard it. And that's kind of why we're here talking, because we've seen the issues and we've been able to be very successful, in other areas, and definitely want to apply that similar logic, but at a unique care and unique implementation here.
Yeah, and it almost was like a buffet when companies were out there and they were first to market, if you want to call it that, in terms of digital advertising. So you were the first to market in digital advertising. You were gaining all these leads. Now you have to compete against these other companies that have now caught up, right? There was a gap and it's been closed now. So all companies have to be at the upper echelon of companies creating content. It's more about content creation than it really is about advertising.
Content is huge. I mean, that's what really sets places apart is the content, and seeing is believing. I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but it's true. Because if, let's say you move to an area and you want some renovation done, you don't know anyone. There's no word of mouth to really ask. You bring up Google. Or you go on Facebook, or you go on social media and try to search hashtags to see what other people are doing. That's where you need to be, is to answer the need of those people. And they're looking, they're out there. You just might not be reaching them right now.
Right. And you have to be more sophisticated. It's just point blank. I think that's what's great about Grosso University and GU Digital in general is closing that gap. If you're still a company out there that has that gap that I'm talking about, you can close it very quickly. The reason for that is because we're going to do tailored ads. We're going to do different things for you that close that gap quicker than doing it on your own. You don't have to go out and take courses and certification on digital advertising, but we're also going to not cast you aside into a pool of 100 different clients that we are, the key there is we're going to be exclusive per region. And at the end of the day, we're not contracted, right?
Right. The big thing too is like we're communicating all the time what's happening. So if you're sitting there like, I don't know what's happening to my ad account, or I'm paying some people to do stuff, you should know. Like it's your business that's out there, and that's one thing that we're doing is we're saying what we're doing and why. And that's really, I think, the important thing here to key in on is the why to it, because we're saying this is the targeting we have and why we're doing it, and that gives anyone a good opportunity to say, "Ooh, I think we're missing the mark," or "That sounds perfect." And the beauty of it too is we might disagree. We're going to A/B test. That's what you and I were talking off camera before. A lot of places aren't doing is A/B testing, and that's what we love to do. We're kind of nerds over here about data and A/B testing, which is good for everyone. But that's one thing we want to look at, because the first idea might not be the one that works, and we might fail a little bit along the way as we learn. But we take those, classroom as failures, but we take the learnings from those and apply them. And that's how we grow success. I mean, that's how you and I, we've worked before of like, hey, that didn't work, but here's what we learned from it. Let's apply it here.
Absolutely. So it's most failing forward, but at the end of the day, still gaining leads and working on your account from we take everything serious, every client serious, so that their content is a reflection of their actual brand and their business in general. When it comes down to it, it is more about just under-promising, over-delivering, which I've found in the industry is kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah, so it's really easy to tell something they want to hear and get the business. And then a couple months down the road, you have an uncomfortable conversation where, we're not quite doing what we thought we would do. That's where, maybe I told down this my own demise. Like I've told people like, hey, I don't know if this is going to be a fit for you. And it's like they've never heard that before. And it's because we're going to be honest with you, because we said before, we don't want to have a conversation like this isn't working. We want to say, here's a floor. We think we can do this, but here's where the ceiling is. We might need a little bit more spend or a little bit more content here, but we can get to an area where you may have not thought you could be.
Now, and when we started talking about this, when we talked about A to B testing, you said off camera here, we were talking about A to B testing, and what I shared with Sam is that I've met with dozens of digital advertising agencies, and never once was there ever a point where they're talking about A to B testing. Some of these companies will run ads ad nauseum for months on end. Sam was taking a look. What did you were taking a look at some of the ads out there, and how long have they been running?
Some of them, when you go back and look at like the ads history, it's like, hey, this ad's been running since 2021. It's crazy. And you might be sitting there thinking, hey, I've got ads that have been running for years, and they work. Clearly they work if you still have them running and you're getting revenue. But there's more on the table. Truthfully, there's money left on the table, and you might not know what that is, and that's where we want to have that conversation.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, that's why you shoot out of the gates with that same ad copy.
Yeah.
You start really producing, and it's very efficient, and then you just see this trail off over time.
Yeah.
It becomes less and less efficient, and then your cost per lead goes up. Your ROI isn't as strong as it used to be. What are some things that you could be doing to bring that back up to speed?
A lot of it is studying and just talking to people. Like, hey, is there seasonality in your business? Because a lot of businesses have some significant seasonality. And the ad could be, just reacting to the seasonality. Well, maybe we need some certain content to curtail some of that seasonality. Might not be able to get rid of it. Exactly. Create urgency and, lessen some of those dips. And the other thing too is ad will perform really great, plateaus, and it comes down. Well, we want to lessen where that is and also learn when that happens and get ahead of it, because then we can prevent that from happening or reduce the effect.
Why do you think some ad agencies or some digital advertising agencies run those ads so long? Why do you think they would do that?
If in the beginning, let's say you establish metrics, and it's like, hey, here's the goal we have, and that ad just continually hits it, there's no reason to change it at that point. I think you know me, I don't like to sit and be complacent. So if it's doing fine, let's see how it can do better. And that's where if you have an ad that's been running, great, let's test it against something new. And if the new thing doesn't work, all right, well, we have a baseline to go from. That's beautiful to have a baseline. And also if you have nothing at all, we can start from scratch.
Yeah, those are the same ads that have the hidden comments because you have...
or everyone's been on there. You scroll on Facebook and you see a ton of comments on there, or frankly, places that have had an ad running for a long time and there's customer issues in the comments.
Well, they just hide them.
Yeah, or if they don't, that's a billboard to not go and work with that business. We've all seen those out there, and we kind of laugh at them. It's like, that's funny, but someone's spending money to get that in front of people.
No, I routinely, when I was in the industry as the CMO, I would jump into other people's ad accounts and take a look at their ads.
Yeah.
And there would be 45 comments on one ad.
Yep.
You'd click into it, and it'd show 5 of them.
Yeah.
So that's just telling me that they didn't want you to see the other 40, right?
Yeah, there's something going on.
There's 300 likes on this ad. Good engagement. But those are the ads that have been sitting there since 2021. So is it really good engagement? It gives you this false impression of sophisticated ad that's actually performing well when it's just been rocking for 2-3 years.
Yeah, and we're talking about engagement a little bit with comments and likes on ads, and someone might be thinking, I don't want to do social media. Like, we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, we don't really do a whole lot. That's okay. Like, that's the beauty about these ads, is that it's targeted. Having an online footprint is absolutely necessary in this day and age. We're talking about COVID. If you're trying to find a company to work for, you look up what their online presence looks like and see what that is. That's kind of a normal consumer behavior, but that's where the ads too. If you don't have any robust social media, it helps bolster that.
And the other development in this industry is the proclivity for private equity come in and scoop up these organizations.
Yep.
More sophisticated organizations being scooped up by private equity. And private equity inherently, when you bring that on board, you're going to need to hit bottom line numbers. You're going to need to increase efficiency. But they have these big budgets. What it is a massive influx of cash. So as an organization, you have to compete with these large budgets out there. Yeah. So if you're not doing A to B testing and making yourself more efficient over time, what I found is you're never going to compete with those massive budgets of private equity out there. And that's another thing to consider. How do you think you'd circumvent that, or how do you think you'd improve upon what you're already doing to compete with some of those behemoths in the industry?
It's tough because there's a huge amount of spend that they're putting out there. So, they're going to reach a lot of people, but that's kind of their goal, is to reach a huge, large number of people. Of course, they're trying to get to the right people, but that's where, they're taking an approach with a shotgun. We're trying to use a scalpel, where we want to be very specific and surgical of where we are, when we're doing things, and what we're doing. It sounds really obvious, but honestly, it's hard to put into practice and be diligent with it. That's where we've been able to find some repeated success with people, is actually taking that surgical approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, being a little bit more tactful, getting a little bit more micro in your targeting, things of that nature.
Well, and some places just miss out on some targeting because a lot of digital ads platforms, it's only as good as the data the user puts in.
Right.
So I might be saying on Facebook I'm interested in one thing, but I'm really I have other hobbies that I'm not, telling Facebook, but there's some fringe, interests and behaviors I'm doing that we can target off of as well.
It's more about tracking that, but having that data come in clean, because garbage in equals garbage
absolutely.
Out. So again, we're talking about internal processes. We're talking about your ability to instill and install platforms to be able to track that data efficiently, and that can set you apart. Now, when it comes to being a little bit more sophisticated, what is your advice to some organizations that are looking to take a baby step into, maybe even tracking their own first party data or dipping their toe in that pool?
Yeah, it's start. It's kind of basic, but choose somewhere and start. And that's the scariest thing is, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to start somewhere, and you're going to goof up and learn some things along the way. I think that's how we, all of us have, gone through life in one way or another. But it's really do you want to just start tracking your website analytics, or maybe you have analytics for your website and you're not looking at them? Start looking at them, because you'll develop, some trends over time, and be diligent with it. Every week, schedule an hour and just look at your website analytics. What's the traffic look like? What do the leads look like? What did the close rate look like? Talk to your sales team. What are they saying? And that's a great place to start. If you already have all of that and you're like, maybe we need to do some ads, start. Now, it's a little scary out there because you can throw your money out there and, Meta will just take it, or
said,
Google will just take
Facebook will take your money.
Exactly.
Meta will take your money.
Otherwise, if you're like, I have some...
Zuckerberg will take your money.
Clearly, yeah. If you have some money, you're like, I want to spend it, but I don't think I'm the right person to spend it because I don't know, how this works. That's where someone like us comes in, where you can call us and talk to us, and that's where we'd want to do an audit and not just dive in and say we can do all this stuff. Let's do an audit, talk about it. What are you looking for goals, and what's your spend look like? Because that's the other thing. There's big companies, small companies. There's small companies that want to spend a bunch, and we might say, I don't think you need to spend that much. Let's slow the roll a little bit.
There are agencies out there that you throw a budget out there to them and you say I have X amount of dollars, they'll use 100% of it regardless of efficiency, right? So I can hear you on that. I've been in that position before.
That's my favorite thing, is to say, if someone says, hey, here's our budget, and we'll take 80% of it. And wait, I'm like, it doesn't make sense because there's diminishing returns. At some point, you're not going to be getting that same return back when you're throwing.
And that's just a poor reflection on your cost per lead or your conversion, metrics in terms of return on ad spend and different things like that. If you're taking more money than necessary to produce the same amount of business, that's only going to harm your relationship moving forward.
Exactly, right? and it's just more spend to manage, and it complicates things. So you're probably surprised we're saying this, but we want to spend as little as possible of your money to maximize it, where we're not incentivized to just spend crazy amounts of money all the time.
Right. And what I always ran into, again, as the CMO, I ran into digital advertising agencies that insisted on owning ad accounts, owning Google ad accounts, and really kind of keeping a veil behind the metrics.
Yeah.
And they were really actually kind of tweaking and molding the metrics to make it look like they were more successful than they really were.
Yep.
When the rubber met the road, return on ad spend and the net revenue from the ads that we were doing, was not hitting the mark. And in general, they were passing the buck.
Yep.
Why would digital advertising agencies be less than forthcoming with my metrics? Also, why would they want ownership of those accounts?
It's two really good questions. And, going back to you mentioned private equity coming in. Mm-hmm. Well, if private equity comes in, you don't own your own assets. That's a weird conversation to have.
Right.
And part of the reason too is sometimes it's an ease thing where it's like, let's own this. We're going to take it. Mm-hmm. From our standpoint, it's all yours. Like we prefer it's yours because it's your business. You own it. Let us borrow the keys and we'll dive in there. But, if something happens, like we're out and it's still yours. Then your website, your emails, like your ads, like you have your own platform. I think it might be a little bit around control, but we get access to it. We can do everything.
Right, and that was a philosophy that you had before you partnered with us, right? So that was a philosophy. It's no contracts. The customer owns their own ad accounts.
Yeah.
Why did you guys make that decision?
Because we hated other people, doing that. It's kind of one of those like common sense things where it's like. Yeah. We didn't like this. Why would we ask people for this? Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're making any less. Like I think we're able to be more successful because it's more transparent, and also that you're not signing a year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year contract. Mm-hmm. Every month we're trying to earn your business, and, and that's the big thing. Of you asked about why are they tracking some of these metrics or making things look really good when maybe they aren't. That's a communication thing because I might tell you, Josh, hey, I'm getting you 10,000 visits a month. We're killing it, and you're like. Dude, we're starving. We're not getting any leads.
Was it 10-year-old kids?
Yeah, exactly. and what is it? And that's where it's that transparent conversation of, here's what we're seeing on the marketing side. I know site visits, click-through rate, all those KPIs, they don't pay the bills. Converting leads is what does that. That's where we want to talk. Say, what do the leads look like? What are they converting? What isn't converting? What are you having problems with? What kind of people are calling in? Mm-hmm. And then adjust from there.
Yeah, it was almost like I felt hostage at some points in that process. Yeah. Digital advertising agencies, and I call and give them, my feedback on their performance, right? So what we're talking about is a performance-based relationship where we have to maintain performance to maintain the account, to maintain the relationship.
Absolutely.
In the other instance, I would call them up and ask them about performance, and they'd give me feedback on what their justification behind the metrics was. But then also I'd say, well, then I'd like to take my business elsewhere. They say, good luck, because you don't own your Google ad account. Yeah. You're going to have to start from scratch. Now, for people out there that are dealing with this type of problem right now, what is your advice for that situation?
Don't enter in that situation. That's the first advice. But if you are there, have that open, honest conversation of why you want to own your own digital footprint. Mm-hmm. It's something that it's tough to see. We've been able to work with people that were in a similar situation where we're trying to get access to something and a different agency owns it. So it's that awkward kind of exchange of information where you can't move as fast as you need to if you don't own your own stuff. And that's where have a conversation with it. And it's not a hard process to go do. Yeah. This isn't like magic. It's something where you can look it up, and it's a pretty simple process to transfer ownership of things over.
Cool. And so when I see this, in the industry, you look at companies. I've seen this transition before. It's right around a $10 million organization, right, where you see that people want to get more sophisticated and internalize some of their digital advertising. They hire that marketing manager that's now going to oversee the processes.
Yes.
They're moving away from, they're going to be running ancillary campaigns, some internal, maybe their organics internal, maybe a few ad campaigns internally. And then they have their digital agency with those staple ad campaigns that they have created. And that's when I see them, they're like, well, I want ownership of this so we can run some of our own ad campaigns. And that's when they get denied that access. And then when they talk about performance with their digital advertising agencies, it's always, we dare you to go somewhere else, right? And we've found that that's just not a good way to do business.
No, it's tough. And truthfully, I love it when someone has an internal, marketing capability and I'm not threatened by it. That just makes us more powerful. We have more resources to do what we need. And if a company has their own goals and they want to run their own ads or things like that, great. But we got to talk about it because I don't want to compete on our own ads for the same people or understand what the spend is. And if, you want to run your own things, you're not seeing things perform how you want, well, we're there to help. Like, we're not just looking at our own stuff. We're there to serve, the company that we're working for.
So switching gears here, Sam, let's talk a little bit about some smaller operations out there, I've seen digital advertising agencies or one person that's looking to scale their business and they get you on as a client to begin with. They really don't have the resources or they don't have the skills to really scale your business. What's your advice for some companies out there that find themselves in this situation?
It's a tough spot to be in because at some point you only have so much time in the day, and your people only have so much time in the day too. So that's where an agency can come in and really bolster the resources you already have. So that we want to like latch on to it. It isn't just like we're working separate in silos. No, we're working together, and that's where the benefit of like a team is. There's diversity there in experiences and what they've done in accounts because we're not green. We've been doing this for a bit, so we know what works, we know it doesn't work, but we also have situations we've been in and how we've gotten out of them that we can apply in different ways. So it's not a one size fits all, not a cookie cutter approach like we talked about, but it's the benefit of a bigger team to do more with a few people. And I think it's a lot of it accelerating the results where something that could take 2 months, let's try to do it in 30 days.
And taking a look at team size in terms of taking on digital advertising results for a client, obviously more people to look at that account is going to be beneficial to that client because you can do that more often, right? What I found with these smaller organizations, these smaller agencies, is that they only have enough bandwidth to check on your account once, maybe a week.
Yeah.
And that really has you behind the 8 ball in terms of making changes and kind of pivoting on your creative and your copy and all of these other things. It takes bandwidth.
Exactly.
Right? So with the additional bandwidth, what types of improvements do you generally make when you see people moving from those smaller agencies to you guys?
Yeah, well, touch on a little bit speed. Like we can move faster. So let's say we go in and there's a whole account restructure that needs to be made. We're like, hey, you have an ad account. It just isn't structured right. We need to revamp it. Well, one person doing that is going to take a while. Right. That's where you need a few people, whether someone working on graphics, some content, whatever it is, or actually placing the ads, or on Google specifically, keywords. That's a lot of manual work, and that's where we get to the scalpel level of detail and how we're using things of what exactly is someone going to search for and how do we come up that way. So speed is big, and then the other part of it too is just being able to move things fluidly, between things and that communication. Where it's, hey, if I'm working on this, that doesn't mean I can work on something else. If we have 3 things we need to work on, if 3 people are working on them, each have one, it's faster, and that communication is going to be better too.
Right, and it's about experience too. You were touching on this earlier, but between you and AJ, how much experience do you guys have in ad accounts, or how long have you guys been doing this?
Combined, I mean, it's decades at this point with it. But the cool part is it's varied.
We both got gray in our beards now.
I got it in my hair. And girlfriend won't stop reminding me of
Call
that.
But salt and pepper.
Yeah, it's knowledge and experience is what it is. But we're not new to it. Is kind of the thing. It's an always evolving landscape, and that's where I think a lot of newer agencies come in. Is we're on the cutting edge. That's great. They probably are, but there's a backlog of experience as good marketing know-how. You can't replace that. Unfortunately, it takes a few gray hairs to get to that level, as we've seen. But it's also, we have that backlog and we know how to look at change because it's easy to react very fast to something and just do it. I'd like to sit back and see things a little bit and understand it because sometimes if you're the first to do something, that's not where your customers are, where you want to be. Let's think about it and be pragmatic about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that experience, we were talking off camera about this, but we were talking about retargeting and workflows and flows in general. That's what I see from less sophisticated agencies to more sophisticated agencies like yours, where the flows and our ability to keep people in the funnel is just exorbitantly better. It's just infinitely better. And tell a little bit about that, or talk a little bit about that and some strategies that we can deploy that, some of those mom and pop agencies just can't do.
Yeah. So a lot of what we've been talking about is just ads, getting people to the website, all that. Yeah. That's part of it. So Josh, you mentioned the funnel system. So you look at a funnel, we start at top of funnel. So that's where you're just brand awareness, and the bottom of the funnel, that's where your sales team is converting leads into actual customers. So through that, there's a customer journey. Some people might skip it, and that's what we're also knowledgeable about. Someone might just, I'm ready to do something, at my house or whatever. I just need an awareness, I need to find a company. Great, they'll convert at top of funnel. That's not everybody, especially with this industry. So it's working people through the funnel system, which is a combination of ads, emails, and truthfully touch points from humans, from the sales team. So I'll talk about it a little bit. If I get too boring, just kick me under the table here. But starting at the top of the funnel, perfect.
You're fine.
You've got brand awareness. Brand awareness is the first thing. They got to know who you are. They go to your website. We have tracking installed. Let's use myself an example. I'm looking to, say, remodel my bathroom. Find a company on an ad, click on the ad, go to the website, and then I'm not ready yet. I'm just kind of thinking it, shopping around. I leave. Well, our strategy is we want to retarget that person with some ads and make sure we know they've been on the website, kind of break that barrier down. We know they're looking. What do they need next? Is it educational information? Is it pricing? Do they just need to call someone? Maybe they didn't find the phone number. So there's retargeting ads that get them through there. On your website, that's where we want to ask someone for some information. So maybe provide them something for free, like a guide or a how-to, or just a simple email pop-up for like news, offers, or newsletters. Get them to sign up, because once we have their email address, we can do some retargeting. And that's where we talk about flows.
Right.
It's a joke. It's old at this point for me, but flows are my favorite employee. They work all the time.
Right.
And once someone is in an email flow, they're giving your email address, they have some interest in you, let's nurture that lead. Someone might not be ready to convert right away. It might be 3 days from now. It might be 3 months from now. Well, we need to understand your business and your customers and what you're trying to do, because you might not want people sticking in these flows for months. Or you might. We got to talk about that. And whatever you want, we can tailor that strategy to complete that objective.
And I think it's more about capturing all the traffic as opposed to just the traffic that's converting instantaneously. Right?
That's the easy stuff. The thing I would like to focus on is who calls 2 or 3 times and talks to your sales team, because that's someone who's seriously considering a purchase, and they could be a really good customer to work with because they know what they want. They're just trying to find that solution that they need. And that's where we would talk with you, because we may not have access to that data, and we need to hear from you and your team. What's it look like? Like, what's happening out there, and how are we influencing the outcomes?
I know most of the businesses listening on right now are thinking about those tire kickers that call you 20 different times and never set an appointment.
Just give me pricing.
We're not talking about those people.
We want to avoid that.
We're talking about people who just need a little bit more nurturing and a little bit more content. What he's talking about is gated content. He's talking about informational stuff on your products and your services, maybe your company, maybe an embedded email with a video that's there to give an explainer on your differentiators and the exclusive features of your product and things like that. What I found with other ad agencies out there is that there's none of that. You literally it's an all or nothing approach. You either garner that lead, they run a lead generator campaign on Facebook, and if they don't convert right on that landing page, they bounce and you'll never see them again. Possibly they bounce to do business on Angie's website, and then you're purchasing that lead for a second time. You're purchasing that lead for a second time from Angie.
Absolutely.
And you're getting them credit where you have already captured that client, possibly with your local services ads or your local SEO, on the map pack or something like that. But all these digital advertising agencies are kind of like a one-stop, where if you don't get that lead, they're not targeting it again. And that's what I really loved about you guys, is that you're talking about flows, you're talking about the customer journey as a whole, as opposed to just lead generation campaigns that you're throwing money at on Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm saying this stuff, and I think a lot of us are conscious of, we hate junk mail. We hate seeing ads that are irrelevant. And when you're seeing those and you're frustrated, it's because it's not the right time for you to get served that message, or maybe they had something set up incorrectly where you're getting served something that you shouldn't, because it doesn't make sense. Like, I bought this, why am I getting sold this again? And that's, I think, kind of the classic thing of, I've already bought from you guys, stop. Like, I've already done
There's something wrong with their triggers behind the scenes, but that's another probably ad agency that literally hasn't touched those workflows in many months, right? And if there is an error, they set it, they forget it, they don't work on it, and they just have that flow serving incorrect content to the wrong people or people who have already purchased. It's about sophistication. Again, I'll go back to that word, because I really think that's what it's all about, is allowing a bigger bandwidth with a larger team that you have to be more sophisticated, so you don't have wasted money, wasted efficiency, wasted ad placement and display ads and different things like that. Or just people that aren't even homeowners. Like, targeting is what it's all about, because you lose these details when you have such a low bandwidth.
Absolutely.
And that happens in 2 ways. It's the small teams that don't have enough bandwidth as the one person, or the large teams that take on too many clients and don't give your account the attention to detail.
Yep, absolutely. And it's all a balance. And I'm talking about these high-level things, and we're talking about sophistication. None of this is like, oh my gosh, like they have a crystal ball sort of thing. It's experience, and there's a set of tools that we have to use, and we're using those tools in the right places.
Well, if you go online right now and you search lead generation, SEO, or you search digital advertising, you'll get a litany of different softwares or different
offers for
platforms that say that, it's a one-stop shop. You can set your flows, you can run digital advertising through. It's not true. You need to absolutely be trained in these methods. You're not doing A to B testing by yourself on a platform. Maybe if you put a lot of time and effort in that, you get certifications and different stuff like that. But what's great about us is we have the experience, like you said, decades of experience, that you don't have to do that trial and error because some of these software platforms are expensive. What I usually find in the companies that I've worked with, they've tried them all.
Yes.
Then they go to a digital advertising agency that overpromises, underdelivers. So it's this kind of perpetual cycle. Then they say, hey, let's bring this internal. Then they get those platforms and the software and it goes unused. Then they go back to the ad agencies and it's this never-ending cycle of just in perpetuity of underperformance.
Yeah.
So that's what we're really trying to circumvent with GU Digital. And, the reason why we saw this gap, and I literally put a phone call out to Sam and AJ, and it was more about, I see this massive gap in this industry. And I think that your guys' skills, your guys' experience is what we need in this industry to really take it to the next level. So expound a little bit on that. Like, what promises are you willing to make to customers that you've been making for a long time now?
It's easy to make these promises because it's honesty, communication, and consistency, where we're going to do the honesty and communication consistently. It's not rocket science, but it sounds kind of crazy, and you might be sitting there like, I've never had an issue with it. That's great, but there are a lot of people that have, and that's kind of like what we've talked about because we've seen it firsthand. We've also been on the other side of it where we've had some just weird stuff happen where it doesn't seem to make sense, and that's really what it is distill down to basics. Like, we work with a whole bunch of different companies in our past and currently, and we see all these different tools that you talked about and platforms and this and that. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Oftentimes it's, we don't have to overcomplicate things, and with overcomplication also comes more spend. Let's focus that spend on what makes you money, not paying a software company to just run a service.
Right, exactly. And that's what I found is the more complicated you make things, the more tech stack you have in terms of these simple activities that we're talking about. Now we're making this seem like more than it is, right? What it is impactful content, consistency, and communication.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be brutally honest. Like, if if we're looking at something, the content isn't good, we'll tell you this content is not gonna give the results. If you want results, we need new content. But we're not gonna sit there and be like, you need new content, good luck. We'll give you some suggestions on like what type of content and how to go get it, because you might not have a photographer on hand. I get it. So if we know someone, like, obviously that's what we want to look at doing, and whatever we can do internally, obviously we're gonna do as well.
Let me ask you a question, because at Grosso University we do have content packages. We can send videographers out to these companies.
That's true.
You guys have that capability too, right? So we have resources for all companies to take advantage of. But if you're not willing to dip your toe into that pool and make that investment, we can also coach you on creating content, because content sometimes doesn't have to be a huge production. It doesn't have to be
not at all.
Disney, Pixar quality editing that's being done. It doesn't have to be extravagant.
No.
You can take selfie videos on a job site and make beautiful content. We've seen some of the best companies in this industry, and you have the owner of the company walking through his projects and talking about features, benefits, the way that they operate. They're doing interviews of their employees looking happy on the job sites. They're doing just what goes into a good remodeling project and what to watch out for. They're doing informational content. And I think that's the key word there, is creating informational content for your customers so that you're able to bring them in from a brand recognition standpoint. And we talked a little bit about the funnel, right? Top of mind or top of funnel is always going to be brand awareness, right?
Yeah, always.
And that's the content that anybody can create.
Yeah, it's out there. And I think the big thing is it's authentic content. That's the thing, is oftentimes you're going to go into someone's home. They want to know who's coming into my house. Like, what are they doing? And we see a lot of places do super produced videos. Those have a time and place, absolutely. But like Josh said, using a cell phone, getting some actual authentic content, that goes a long ways, because it's relatable. And they know what to expect, and they know who's going to be coming here and what they're going to be doing. Yep.
And it's, even if you just take a look at simple content before and after.
Oh, those are the number one thing. If you're not doing it right now, start that. Because if you call us in a year and you don't have it, I'll be upset.
Yep. And your best videographers can be your production staff.
Yeah.
because they see the project when it has the old materials in it. They see it mid-project, and then they're obviously there when they complete the project.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is have a group training with your staff and take a look at getting with your production crews and putting a checklist in mind that has like legitimately standard operating procedures for taking before, during, and after.
Yes.
And if you start doing that and you start gaining that momentum, that I call it content momentum, where you just have everybody in your team doing their part. Whether it's the people that are working trade shows and they're saying, hey, come join us. They're going live on your Facebook.
It's great.
Or if you have content that you're generating from your operations team or the installers, or if you have your sales reps taking selfies with people when we're able to shore up a bid and earn somebody's business, shaking a hand, or, hey, we just brought, John and Mary into the family, right?
Exactly. And it's your staff gets excited about jobs. That's what you want to focus on, because that excitement is contagious, and that's what you want, the customers to see is that genuine excitement. And Josh, I think you hit it nail on the head. Is just get a process, and you got to start and just stick to it. And over time, it'll be amazing what you'll see as far as content goes and how that can be used. Sure, social media, but also in ads, in emails, educational things. I mean, the sky's the limit. That's one of the biggest issues we see is a lack of content, and that kind of like slows the roll for starting out. Is we need that content.
And I think it's right off the bat, and this is something that I employ at the companies that I advise, is getting a digital asset management strategy internalized.
Yes.
Whether it's just Dropbox or it's
just
OneDrive,
something,
something, Teams, whatever that may be. Have a central place where everybody's sending that content so that you have this collection over time that you're not piecing together. Because if somebody leaves your organization, that content goes with them usually.
Yeah.
What you're going to want to do is set up somewhere where everybody knows, and standard operating procedures, dumping that content in there so that ad agencies or somebody internally, we don't even need to be able to earn your business. We're just giving you advice in terms of like processes and being able to button these things up, because that's impactful content. Some of the most impactful content I've even seen was charitable events and owners out giving, different food drives and going to pantries and different things like that. It's really just the day-to-day and the cultural stuff that I've seen work better for everybody. It's not your run-of-the-mill ads. Get 10% off. It's infomercials, man. And I always advise people on the infomercials. There's a lot of people, there's agencies that still are successful to this day that do the, act now, and all this other stuff. But we do that too, building urgency, but also building it from a professional level. And that's about talking about the funnel, where you take brand awareness into consideration and you're bringing them all the way through the funnel with that targeted content and display ads and different things like that. Because there's a certain way to appropriately throw a promotion out to somebody without feeling like you're being invasive.
Well, the number one
talk
thing,
a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things is everyone's like, hey, we have an offer. Let's give someone 10% off or a free quote right away. And I'm like, why right away? Like let's see, because especially, like in the e-commerce world, it's easy. We all see it. You go to a website, put something in your cart, and you're like, I don't know if I want it. You leave and they give you an offer. Well, that first email shouldn't be an offer. And this goes for this industry too. It shouldn't be an offer right away. You have a reason you're in business. Let's lead with that. And if that doesn't work, maybe they just need a little push to get over the edge, and that's an offer. Offer that second. Like, why are we giving margin up just to get business we could have otherwise got?
And that landing page probably already had an offer of some sort on it anyhow, so they already bounced from an offer. So clearly that wasn't the stage of the process that they were in.
Yep.
So what type of content? So say you had somebody bounce off a landing page that had an offer on it. What type of content would you focus on to maybe even bring them back into the funnel?
Yeah, so a little bit depends on what kind of the pain points of that funnel stage or what the business is. But a lot of what I like to do is educational content, because it's easy to go out there and get sold to. It's harder to go out there and have someone actually tell you something that's meaningful. And you're giving away a little bit of information for free, but maybe exchange for their information. That's what I really like to lead with, because that keeps them engaged. No one likes to be sold to. Like it's just a tough thing where you can sell to someone without saying buy now, by just giving them a really good email that's educational and clearly had an interest in something that you need to educate them on. Do that and then tell them to buy.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, gated content on the products and services, but also maybe even informational videos that will tell them what to look out for in your window project, or how to choose the contractor for your window project, things like that, that are going to bring them back in the funnel and see you as a resource as opposed to somebody that's just there to, sell products.
It's scary, but it's people buy on trust a lot of times too, and you got to get to know the company. We can make you people super aware of your brand, but we also want to make sure that they know who your brand is, know what they're getting into, because those are people that also become repeat customers. I think we all know that, and also refer their friends to get a great experience.
Yeah, and referrals, word of mouth in this industry and in any product vertical is really where it's at. Obviously, as we have graduated from COVID and the digital advertising boom in this industry, the grassroots stuff is really what we're getting back to, and that is face-to-face marketing, that's door knocking, that's doing events, shows. But tying all these efforts together, digital advertising can tie every form of marketing from an omni-channel perspective into a very targeted, very efficient process. Like we're even talking about gaining somebody's trust face-to-face at an event, but maybe they didn't set an appointment with you, but you did garner their information. They're in your email funnel now. They gave you their email so that you're able to target them over time, but you're being they're in the flows, right? His favorite employee, we put them in our flows so that eventually we can gain that trust over time. Absolutely. And that's what's really separating companies that are going to thrive in 2025 and companies that are just going to status quo. They're going to plateau. I see plateaued companies all over. And we see that with their digital advertising agencies. We see that with them as a whole because they take the same attitude to their digital advertising that they do to most other processes within their business.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the real like grassroots effort, like being at an event, being face to face with people. There, you can only be at so many because you only have so many people at your organization. That's where also, if you know your customers are at an event or doing something, we have ways to target them on specific geographic and demographic information that will allow you to reach them even if you're not there. Like if you can't have a booth at a certain trade show or something you really want to be at and you know your customers are there, let us know. We can get you there and get you in front of people even though you don't have a physical booth. Yeah,
tell me a little bit about that. I in the state of Wisconsin, the state fair is kind of a massive event, right?
Yep.
And I've never been at an organization that's been able to get in the gate because everybody keeps re-upping. It's such it's a huge event to get in front of as many customers as possible. Tell us a little bit about that. How might you handle that particular situation? If you're not able to be present at the event, how would you target those customers?
Yeah, so I'll kind of do like a little bit of specific example. I'm a car guy. Josh knows this. So it's going to be a car example. So let's say you're a company that you renovate garages, you have a product for garages, and you really want like the car folks to know about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of coating companies out there. You got the polyaspartic coating and the steel shelves and there's cabinets.
High demand for that stuff.
Heck yeah, it looks awesome.
I know. Someday. Goal here. Anywho, so you have a product, you know your market. Well, like a drag strip, like the Great Lakes Dragway or WIR, that might be an area that no competition is targeting that area during some of these events. It can be really affordable to get your top of funnel content in front of these people, and that's what we work with existing brands on is who are your customers and what shows you're going to. What shows do you wish you could go at? Or if you just provide us customer information, we're going to get creative and say, hey, you have a male-dominated audience. This is their age group and this is their interest. You're not going to spend money to go to a NASCAR race or like a local circle track race, but we could spend a little bit of ad money to get in front of that people because we know when there's downtime in the action, phones come out. That's the number thing we see, and that's where we do that targeting through Google, Meta, and other platforms.
What do you think in the remodeling industry would be some events that you would target from that geographical region standpoint? Is there anything that would kind of correlate with that? Obviously home shows, but where do you see yourself targeting?
It's honestly, where do you see your customers at? And this is a good conversation we had with a client as well. Is they had a client that's like, hey, they usually a certain income level. It was a higher income level. So it's like, where should we look at targeting? Country clubs. Their customers spend a lot of time at country clubs or certain restaurants, and we target those areas. Yeah. Sure enough, start getting leads.
Yeah. Now, golf courses, and we're talking about getting into print advertisements too, right? So this is at the same rate we were getting into country club magazines, getting into that type of thing. Yeah. Anywhere you might see yourself being on an end table in that magazine, You're saying we could geographically target those customers?
Yeah, and the best part is if let's say you're doing existing print ads, let's look at it. How much does it cost? What are they saying you get? And what do you feeling like you're getting out of it?
Right.
Because if you have $10,000 to spend and you've got $8,000 in print ads and only leaves $2,000 left for digital, let's talk about it. Maybe the digital solution isn't right for you. Maybe the print is great. I want to hear about that. But that's where the discussion comes in, because we can take a look at the numbers and historical information from other clients and understand about what we can do for performance for you, which I'll be honest, we'll give you a floor, kind of like, hey, this is probably where we're going to be at. We can grow from there. And then we can make the decision together.
So let me ask you, as we're kind of wrapping up here, let me ask you, in 2025, there are a lot of gaps in digital advertising, especially in the home improvement industry. Where do you see the biggest areas of opportunity in 2025 for people doing digital advertising in home improvement?
Really, it's interrupting someone's day. I'm not going to give away how to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job.
Secret sauce.
Yeah, but it's really, there's ways to get in front of people when they're searching and looking and trying to do something. But also, those people are thinking about these things. Like, I'm thinking about, actually doing a remodel in my backyard, but I haven't indicated anywhere I want to do that. But I can use my own demographic information and be like, well, this is the type of person that I would target for this. Get in front of them, interrupt their day. That's a big top of funnel approach. A lot of people are scared to spend money at that top of funnel because there's not a guaranteed ROI on that.
Right.
You have to get through that funnel system. That's where there's the gap, and that's where when people understand and they agree with us, hey, let's try it, they're crushing it. We've had a couple companies this past year that have just said, thank you. We're at the top of our class for this, and it's because of the work that you guys have done, which it feels great. But what does 2025 look like? We want to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. From a targeting standpoint, it's different channels. Obviously, CTV and different things like streaming services.
That's a huge thing. That's what we're looking at too, because the amount of time we spend on our phones and our TVs and streaming stuff is huge. I mean, cable is kind of going out where, we've had people talk about, I used to spend money on cable. Well, let's look at a streaming service or, something else we could look at too.
Right. And, I'm routinely, and I am our demographic, right? I'm 39 years old. My home needs some repairs. I actually just got a text from my wife today that
we just talked about that off camera.
Man, I have home improvement projects that seem like they're never ending, right? And when it boils down to the demographics that we're looking to serve, what do I do on a daily basis? And that's why I think that it's imperative that you work with somebody who has a bigger bandwidth that can take a look at those types of things. Trends of behavior, trends of what people are involving themselves on a day-to-day basis and targeting them where they're at already, right?
And the beauty of that larger experience too is we're not going to look at necessarily daily numbers and react off those. We're going to look at it and understand it, but we got to look for trends, because if something isn't going well, maybe it's just not the right time, but we're in the spot, we just need it to happen, where it needs another week to learn. That's what we're going to push back on too, where it's a conversation of, hey, what happened yesterday? We didn't get any website traffic. Well, let's not react to one day. Let's look at it, talk about it, and then understand what's the goal we need to set and when we need to react to it.
Right, and it's about tying all those analytics together and having a source of truth.
Yes.
Right? So that's what's so cool, is that we can take a look at your business as a whole, right? If we're talking about processes, policies, I can take a look at anything internally. So we're ready to generate and process those leads.
Yes.
Once we check that box, taking a look at analytics from a holistic standpoint, where's your traffic coming from? Analyzing right now, 60% of your traffic is coming from Google Ads.
Yep.
And really maximizing that and moving on to the next thing and maximizing your entire portfolio of traffic that you have coming to your website with retargeting.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's really what it boils down to, is taking all of your traffic that you're getting now and maximizing its efficiency, but then creating your own funnels that are branded exclusive to you. Because I'm going to move on to the TCPA compliance issues that we have and the new laws that are coming into place. And we're talking about next week, actually this week. And we're talking about, when this airs, it'll be February 12th. It'll already have happened a couple weeks ago. But so we're taking a look at the TCPA compliance, and branded traffic and exclusive traffic to your website is going to be exponentially more important, because these aggregators that are selling leads to 20 different companies that everybody's relying on right now to kind of bridge the gap between their marketing efforts and their sophistication, we'll use that word again, but also they're just their ability and they efficiently generate their own traffic. We can fill that gap for you because your traffic from these aggregators is going to go down. Your ability to purchase aggregator leads is going to go down, or it's going to be more expensive in general. So if you can increase efficiency from other channels and kind of bridge that gap or replace some of that buy that you have on the aggregator side, that's really going to make companies thrive in 2025. And taking a look at that from a more holistic perspective and omni-channel approach with a team that has the experience, that has the bandwidth that we have at GU Digital is going to be really important for these companies. I feel like, and that's why we're going to be helping people out. If we're able to get a consultation for you, a free consultation, we'll take a look at your marketing approach, your marketing channels, and see if there is any gaps. If we can't help you, we'll tell you that.
Yeah, 100%. Like we've been there, and in 2025, I think it's really going to be first-party data. That's always king. We always want first-party data. Is pushing more first-party data for you, and then segmentation. I can go a whole webinar on just segmentation. Maybe we need to do that.
We'll invite them back. We'll invite you back.
Awesome. But that's kind of the big thing is, not every customer is the same. They're not interested in the same thing. And how do we find those signals with limited data to segment them so they're getting the right thing at the right time?
Well, what's really crazy about this industry is you can have a company that does business in 5 different verticals.
Yeah.
You have siding, windows, roofing, gutters, and maybe you'll do the polyaspartic floor coatings, or you'll do floor coatings and garage cabinets. Those are completely different.
Totally different.
Like if I were to go over the differences in demographic and avatar for each one of those segments, we're taking a look at that, and that's what we bring to the table. To gain that sophistication and gain that ability to be able to look at metrics like that, look at data like that, would take a lot of resources, time, effort, hiring of employees, training, where we can just take that on and do that day one, right?
Yeah, and the trouble too with a lot of folks of hiring internally is this comes and goes. There doesn't seem to be consistent. It's hard to pay someone that just sit at a desk for a couple of weeks, not have as much to do. That's where we interface, and it's just a consistent thing. It makes it way easier.
Right, and we can advise people, and I've always said this, is, we'd love to be able to earn people's business in perpetuity, but having a resource on staff that we can actually mold and train and take a look at these different metrics, we can give them advice on how to do that internally. We don't need companies to do business. We love it. We don't need companies to do business with us for 20 years. Right. Becoming, more self-sufficient is always going to be the goal. And at the end of the day, if we can help you on that and be your resource for doing that, we'd also love to be able to do that for you as well. Now, Sam, we talked about internal processes before.
Yes.
And we talked about how that can make or break your ad campaigns over time. But what really makes or breaks your ad campaigns over time is your ability to close deals. That's why I love Grosso University and our offerings. Our bread and butter is sales training. And sales training for a modern world, or modern training for a modern world. And our ability to train sales reps to become better closers, because there's no better marketing improvement than having your sales team just close more on the leads that you do provide. So that's one of the things I want to expound on a little bit is we're a one-stop shop for all your business operations, so we can tie everything together. Sales being more efficient is going to allow us as marketers to really focus on volume generation and quality of leads that we're bringing to our sales staff. So we know that at the end of the day, if we get them in front of quality opportunities that are qualified, we know they're going to knock it out of the park with that Grosso University sales training as well. Sam, we talked about a lot here.
We covered a lot of ground.
We covered a lot. I think it's time to wrap it up. And just to summarize, we were taking a look at some of the challenges for digital ad agencies and people looking to employ digital ad agencies in 2025. Whether that's the cookie cutter approach, or it's small agencies, large agencies not giving your account the time of the day that it needs, or it's not the sophistication that they're taking a look at targeting throughout the stages of the funnel. They're blunt force trying to just create leads from thin air.
Exactly,
All these problems can be solved with a concrete plan. So just in summary, what we can do to create a concrete plan for some of these folks that might be interested in taking a look at GU Digital.
Yeah, I mean, it's a repeatable plan too. This is kind of like our playbook we look at. I think I mentioned it before. We covered a lot of ground, so if not, I'm sorry. But really start with an audit. Take a look at, what's going on with there. Where, we'll want to talk before the audit, but for an audit, small fee there because we just can't give away stuff for free.
Right.
I've been burned by that. But, do that and then understand what's actually happening. Like what's going on with your business? What does the digital landscape look like? And we'll provide, actual, a deck of information of what's good, what's bad, what are the recommendations, and what are some projections. I think that's the important part too that a lot of agencies don't do is what are some projections that we're putting on paper that we think we could hit. Choose to work with us, great. That becomes part of your first month's retainer, and from there I look at 30, 60, 90 days. First 30 days, Josh, testing. That's the big thing. Let's get in there, fix anything that's broken, and test a few things. Get a basis of where we're at. The next 30 days, so month 2, that's really where we're going to start to see some of those initial results, and the testing results will be done. We'll be able to work off of those. Then the third month at 90 days, that's really where we're going to see what things kind of will look like longer term, a better projection at it, and what our changes had an effect on. And then from there, we're kind of off to the races. But it's just really 3 months that it really takes to get to know a business, get to know your customers, and make some changes and experiment. Because I wish we could just experiment overnight. That'd be great, but it takes a little bit of time to do that. And we'll be in contact every 2 weeks through the whole process and while we're working with you guys.
Perfect. So Sam, it feels like, that's a pretty in-depth process. That's a lot of value there.
Yeah.
Now, on this webinar, everybody who's stuck with us here, we're going to talk about a special for the webinar. But first, it's just a free consultation. Matt Burke is going to allow you guys to click a link here to set up a free consultation with us as a result of the webinar. But here as a special, anybody in attendance, we'll also give you a free audit. If you choose to go down the path of doing business with GU Digital, we give you a $1,000 value for free. If you choose to do business with us, we'll fully reimburse you for that audit. And what does that audit include?
It's pretty in-depth. So we're going to want to go look at your website, any ad platforms that you're on, basically anything that you're active on digital where you're paying for any sort of placement, we'll want to get access to it. So we'll get access to your website, analytics, and we'll just run through all of it. We'll look at the content that's on there, take a look at what ads are running, if there are ads, and if there aren't ads, we'll look at if you have some competitors, maybe what they're doing and how we can find a spot that will have you guys win.
Yeah, and that $1,000 is just what they normally charge, or we normally charge. It's well beyond that value to get insight and visibility to what you're currently doing and what those gaps are and how you could improve there.
Yeah.
So it's almost invaluable information for these.
It's actionable. And that's kind of like why we charge for it is because if we just do it for free, it gets used against us.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, we really covered a lot here.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great offer for anybody in attendance. But right now we're going to open it up, as Sam alluded to earlier, to some Q&A here so we can answer any questions that you might have. So this is kind of like a free consultation for you right at the end of the webinar here. We'll take anybody's questions and we'll be here for the duration of those questions.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Ask away and we'll get into it, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching and sticking with us. A lot of information here. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so we'll do our best to get through those.
Yeah, it was great information. Thanks for joining us here,
Thanks
Sam.
for having me, Josh.
Let's answer
Appreciate
these
it.
questions.
Absolutely.
And at Grosso University, we're leaders who make leads.